Hi, I'm Rebecca Valcarcel, and this summer, June of 2024, I walked from London to Canterbury with a friend on a pilgrimage trail called the Pilgrim's Way. Now, this is a much less traveled pilgrimage trail than the Camino de Santiago, which I've done before, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought I would just let folks know what it's like and what it's about. So the Pilgrim's Way can be walked a longer version from a town called Winchester to Canterbury, but I walked from London because I'm also an English professor and I really feel a connection to Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, which is a work that I sometimes teach. And in that story, a group of pilgrims walk from London to Canterbury. So that's part of why I wanted to do this walk. It is 90 miles or so, and it takes about, if you walk 10 miles a day, that would be 9 days. I want to say I walked actually 10 days, and you could divide it up more if you wanted, or you could go faster if you wanted. I recommend the guidebook, The Pilgrim's Way. It's one of the only books that there is about this trail, and it does have step by step, different stages and where you could eat, where you could sleep. But there's quite a few differences between this trail and something like the Camino de Santiago in Spain. For one thing, in Spain, there's lots of people walking, especially on the most popular routes, the couple, two or three most popular routes. You will always meet fellow pilgrims. On this walk, I think we met five, and really two in particular, who we actually had a conversation with. So that's across all those 10 days of walking. So hardly anybody is out there walking this particular trail, especially since this trail isn't just the Pilgrim's Way. It actually uses lots of other trails that go by different names. One is the Green Chain, for example. Another one is the North Downs Way. And these are trails that already exist in England, and people do walk those trails, especially as day hikes. So you will meet people, but they won't necessarily be pilgrims, and they won't necessarily be going all the way to Canterbury. There is, though, a pilgrim's passport that you can get at different cathedrals along the way. We were able to buy ours at the gift shop in the Salisbury Cathedral in London, very close to the Globe Theatre. So it is a paper that's very similar to what the Spanish Trail offers with stamps. However, another difference is that most of these stamps came from churches because a lot of the businesses along the way and the bed and breakfasts didn't know what this was. So sometimes they did, and the closer to Canterbury we got, the more likely people were to understand what this was or even offer a stamp. But a lot of people said, "Oh, what, a stamp? What are you talking about?" But the churches knew, and in a lot of cases, the churches had the stamp available just inside the door, like on a little counter or a little table where it gave some information about the church, and then it would have the stamp. And it's good to sign the guidebook if you're there. I'm sorry, the guest book, to show that there are pilgrims going through. It helps the church know to go ahead and keep that stamp there, and helps them count how many pilgrims this year, for example, have gone through. So there is some of the architecture of a pilgrimage, but much less than the Camino in Spain. I wanted to mention that there's also not a certificate at the end. In Spain, you get a nice like Latin, you know, certificate printed out the Compostela, and that's because that's issued by the Catholic Church. And in England, we don't have the Catholic Church running the Canterbury Cathedral. It's the Anglican Church, the Church of England, and they just haven't set that up. And there's some historical reasons, the Protestant Reformation and so on, why the pilgrimage tradition was kind of lost in England and is now getting going again, but something like a certificate they haven't created. But of course, you can buy souvenirs, and I bought this little pilgrim badge, which is in the style of the medieval pilgrimage badges that show Thomas à Becket, who is the saint honored at Canterbury Cathedral. And of course, you want to learn about the history of St. Thomas à Becket and how he was murdered on, right there in the cathedral, and the spot is marked with a memorial. And there's just a lot of rich history there that makes it a very meaningful journey. So that you can buy. I also purchased a pin that has a cross that's associated with Canterbury Cathedral. And of course, you could, for something to put on your backpack, you might want to get a little patch or something. You can actually buy these ahead of time through the mail from Canterbury Cathedral's website. So if you want a little token that you finished, or a token that's on your pack to show that you're a pilgrim, those three things are a good idea. One person did notice my pin and said, "Oh, are you a pilgrim?" And so it actually did its job. For those of you familiar with the Spain routes, you have a shell to denote that you're a pilgrim. But instead of that, I used these objects. So there's some differences there. No certificate and no shell, but you could, use these other things. Another thing is that in Spain, there's such a well-marked path that you could just about just go and just follow the yellow arrows and never have a map or even a guidebook. I mean, it's just so well marked. That is not the case for the Pilgrim's Way. You need to have maps downloaded onto your phone. I was able to find a free version, but the whole route was then marked with a red line. So I was able to see where we were at all times, and it was very important. Now, this guidebook is excellent, I think, but it isn't 100% clear at every single intersection. And I relied on the GPS many, many, many times. So really, almost every intersection, we checked both the guidebook and the GPS. And, there are also British phrases in this book that Americans and Australians and maybe learners of English as their second or third language won't quite understand. So the GPS helps with that too. Like, he doesn't say straight when you're supposed to go straight. There'll be something else, like go on through or something like that. So the GPS is really important. Very unlike Spain, it is not well marked. The trail will, every few miles, maybe it'll have a really small seal type of little circle of plastic on a post that says North Downs Way or the Green Chain, but it does not say the Pilgrim's Way. So it's not marked the whole way along. Eventually, I did see some Pilgrim's Way symbols, but that was just the last day or so of the walk. So you must have GPS or maps downloaded on your phone, and something to back up the guidebook. I also had maps that were very zoomed in, detailed topographical type maps that were recommended. They were not enough help either. I don't think, in fact, I had them for a couple of days worth of walking, and then I didn't have any others because I had trouble buying them in the United States. And it turned out I didn't need those. I mean, what I really needed was the GPS. So just that's useful to know. Another thing that's important to know is that you will not necessarily find food at your lunch stop. You can definitely walk so let's say 10 miles and get from one town to another. And there'll be a pub or even a tea room, some place to actually eat and sleep every 10 miles or so. But in between, be looking ahead in the guidebook, be looking up, like Googling the town and finding out what it has. Because I want to say at least 3 days, we ended up walking the whole 10 miles without any, restaurant or cafe or anything. A couple of days we did find something, but we brought sandwiches one of those 10-mile days, which was great because we had done our research and we knew like we pack our lunches. And of course we have like an emergency bar or something in the backpack. It's not like we're gonna starve. But there were some towns that the book indicated that really weren't, it turns out that that pub closed, or it's so far off the trail that it would take an hour just to go check out the town. So we, in one case we decided, no, let's just go on. But because we had heard there wasn't food there, like there weren't stores, there weren't pubs. So yeah, be aware of that. I mean, at least 3 or 4 days we had to make do, and you would just look ahead, pack a lunch, be smart, but be planning. One good thing is trains and buses, but in particular trains, connect almost all the little towns along the route. So if you are injured, exhausted, not used to the time change, and you just need to have a short day, you can probably get a train part of the way. In at least two instances, we took a train for like 4 minutes, and it just shaved off an hour or so of walking that that day, that's how we needed it to be. And it depends on your level of fitness, age, and so on. I think an averagely fit person can do this walk, no problem. But there were some days when the feet just hurt a lot, or we wanted to take a little extra time with something. So yeah, you can hop on a train. I mean, you have to check the schedules, and the time may or may not quite work for you. But we found trains to be pretty frequent and very efficient. And like I said, even if you only go one stop ahead, that might shave off some kilometers for you, or miles, if you need that, if you need a shorter day. You can also often get an Uber or taxi or Lyft from places as well, because the town is just big enough, each of these towns, to support something like that. So yeah, if you needed some help that way physically, it is available. Let's see. I wrote some notes here. I also mentioned on my notes that the lodging is quite different. So there are no albergues, and really almost zero hostels. Also, maybe in London and Canterbury, but really you're going to plan to spend a fair amount of money to be at a bed and breakfast, often a room that's part of, like, above the pub in 100, well, more like 400-year-old building that's got lots of character. But and if you've traveled in Europe, the rooms are kind of small, probably, the bathrooms probably tiny. But it's charming, it's historic, and it usually comes with breakfast. So it's much more expensive per night than something like the albergues and hostels in Spain, but it's all historic and charming and British, and you get your English breakfast in the morning, which is, not just a croissant, but like eggs, and if you eat meat, you could have sausage or bacon, usually a tomato, often hash browns or potatoes, plus bread of some sort. So you'll get a nice breakfast, but it costs. So I probably spent as much in 10 days on this as I spent on like almost a month of the Camino in Spain. But, it's different country and a different level of accommodation. We had rooms to ourselves. We weren't in bunk beds. We were in actual beds. We had a bathroom right en suite, as they call it, as part of the room. So it was very luxurious compared to an albergue on the Camino, especially a public albergue. But it's not a budget kind of walk. So know that. And the food. So I thought the food was great. Britain's not real famous for their great food, but I love scones, I'm finding, and I like tea, and the vegetables were fresh, well cooked. I eat a lot of fish, and Britain's great for that. I guess you could say I'm pescatarian. So I found the food to be quite good. There's plenty of vegetables and soups and fresh breads. So it doesn't all have to be heavy, greasy, fish and chips. Although I had fish and chips too once. But you'll find other choices and healthy choices and gluten free and the whole, they're very modern, I think, with their accommodation to allergies or, dietary restrictions and so on. So I thought the food was actually great. Again, more expensive than what I would have spent in Spain, but fresh and well prepared. So that was great. The last thing I'll mention in this particular video is the weather and the terrain. So Britain's famous for its rain, the whole British Isles. But we were very lucky. It really only rained, like for 10 minutes one day. And there was some rain once we were in Canterbury. I had my umbrella, I had my poncho. I did not use my poncho at all. I used my umbrella several times, but it was not like downpour all day. I think the time of year had a lot to do with that. So it was June, and that's one of the months with fewest days of rain. So obviously, look and see what the weather's predicted to be like, and definitely prepare for rain. It's likely to rain, but it turned out that we did not actually like slog through the hours and hours of pouring rain at all. And that might affect your decision about what to wear in terms of jackets and like Gore-Tex or not and so on. I did not take Gore-Tex shoes nor jacket, but my friend did. I think she was happy with her choice, but I didn't need, super waterproof things. Just my umbrella, which is a very light hiking umbrella from Silver Moon, super light, was great. And it also helped in the sun because we actually did get some sun, but there's a lot of shade on this trail. So a lot of this route goes through wooded areas alongside fields. It's a beautiful route. It's very lush. It's very green. It reminds me of Galicia, if you've been on the Camino in Spain. It's so lush because there is a lot of rain. And the hills were, I would say, a lot fewer than I found in Spain. So the terrain was more flat. There were definitely some hills, but not mountains, nothing like the climbs at the beginning and the end of the French Way, for example, in Spain. So, relatively easy trail, beautiful, lush scenery. So I recommend it. I had a wonderful time. And it would actually be fun to do the longer version someday from Winchester. But I was very happy with my London to Canterbury. So I hope that helps somebody. Maybe you'd like to go on this walk. I really enjoyed it. So happy traveling. I'm happy you joined me to hear about the Pilgrim's Way.